because these people are expecting you to be occupied and shut up about it. And when you resist, they're shocked. They make it seem as if you're barbaric. They make it seem as if you've done something completely abnormal. Are you kidding me? How racist is that? So how do you combat that? This is a colonialist mindset. There's no combating that. This is what you have to do. Not be apologetic.
Tell me who we're here with and where we are.
My name is Rahma Zein. I'm a podcaster. I'm here joining the protest with many people from all walks of life, different beliefs, different ideologies, but it doesn't matter because these people are here to say the slaughtering of citizens is wrong. You haven't done anything about it for over 7 months now. Over 30,000 people have died. You're talking about North Gaza where the bombing has reignited. There are people stuck under rubble. Ambulance cars aren't able to get there. So as we're having this interview, there are people in darkness, alone, not knowing what's going to happen next to them. This is insanity. If the people were quiet, this is when you should worry about the world. These protests are what are giving us hope that there are people who are seeing these images on your phone in the 21st century, a televised slaughter on your screens and saying this is wrong. This is the norm. This is the norm.
Throughout the war or the genocide, you've traveled to quite a few countries. What do you think of what you're seeing in the UK today and its significance being in the UK and given the UK's colonial history?
It's the most interesting thing because you see Germany fighting diligently because they have this guilt. They bear this guilt from the Holocaust. So I wonder, why isn't Britain bearing this guilt when they didn't even have Palestinians on the negotiating table when there was the British mandate of Palestine? And that's the thing. This is why Zionism is so digestible to the racists of the world, because inherent in Zionism is the Middle East that was conjured up by Westminster and Fleet Street. And this is why it's so digestible to racists, because it's masked in this ideology, but what it inherently is supremacism, is supremacist, racist colonialism. That's all it is. It is an occupation, and these people are starting to resist this occupation, which they ought to, which is the natural circumstance. It really is the Middle East of Westminster and Fleet Street, because these people are expecting you to be occupied and shut up about it. And when you resist, they're shocked. They make it seem as if you're barbaric. They make it seem as if you've done something completely abnormal. Are you kidding me? How racist is that? So how do you combat that? This is a colonialist mindset. There's no combating that. This is what you have to do. Not be apologetic. You've seen so many politicians who look like you, who are of Middle Eastern background, who've attempted to appease the system. But that hasn't worked, has it? Because when you spoke up, they kicked you off the table. They just want you to look like yourself, but speak like them. Once you don't speak like them, you're no longer invited. So it's no longer a time for appeasement. You be unapologetic, you speak up, because watching a slaughter of people for over 200 days is not normal.
So 7 or 8 months into the war, or what many people are calling a genocide, we're still seeing protests actually grow in size. And there are many countries which don't have protests. So what do you think that says about the countries that do have the protests? Most of them are Western countries. And then the countries that don't have the protests.
Well, they are saying this is the belly of the beast. These are the countries that are enabling this genocide blatantly so. So it is important to protest here. It is important, but it's also important for Arabs in the diaspora and Arabs of the region to unite, to come together, to constantly communicate, and to also not fight each other, to work together. If there's something you feel someone is not doing, you do. You know, that's constructive. If somebody, and you don't know also, there are enough people shouting online. There are people who aren't vocal online, but are working through the system. I remember I criticized one UN worker, and she's Arab, and she told me, you don't know the battles that I'm doing behind closed doors. And maybe it's more important for me not to be screaming online, but to actually work and try and fix it within the system. If this is the case, then so be it. Everyone is protesting in their own way. You have to realize, protest, speaking up, you're going to have all kinds of bedfellows now. It's not going to be one group that's speaking up. You're not going to expand. This is why it's always so farcical to watch mainstream media try to paint protesters in one light. These are people from all walks of life. And you're not going to be able to tarnish that image because it's simply untrue. You see on cameras people from all walks of life, from different ideologies, from different faiths, different ages, different backgrounds, different countries. Because at the end of the day, these are all people united in saying, one, occupation is wrong, and B, slaughtering people and putting it on screen to watch is not just wrong and immoral. It is shocking for you to be silent about it. And talking about the 7 months, it's not normal. And I think it's also exposed to people of the region that, and this is something I've said in a protest before, it's really scary that this has gone on for this long. But in the saddest way, it has exposed something that people needed to see blatantly. Because, and this is something that one student actually pointed out, he's like, it confuses you because you see people in conferences and with suits, and I said this before, and political correctness and preaching all these things, but what they're doing, they're just people in suits, but they're a bunch of thieves and murderers. And no matter how much you try to mask it with press conferences, the truth is now out that you are enabling a genocide. And when you see, there are really interesting videos by Code Pink, who I commend so much, where they go after these politicians and they've exposed how much money they take from APEC. And then it's really interesting because I've gone to the encampments in UCLA, in USC, and Santa Barbara. And then it was really interesting to see these politicians try and depict these protesters as terrorists, try and depict these protesters as infiltrated, try and depict them as impressionable teens. And then what this ends up happening is this fuels the protesters more because they're like, we are patriotic Americans. But this is not the American dream. What you've done is that, and especially calling it a PR disaster. So what were we but PR? What was the USA but soft power and a really well-written press release? So all of this has been exposed, so people will not shut up. And what I say to American politicians, think about long-term what this is going to happen. If the US was just its soft power, which is now gone, their words, not mine, what does it have now? So even if it takes time, it is inevitable. It is the beginning of the end, for sure. And maybe I say this to make myself feel optimistic and not just, but I genuinely believe this.